Hi, this is Ben.
And this is Mason.
Welcome. This is our week 1 review of the NFL. Every week we're going to go week by week and talk about each individual game and go through the statistics of each game, what players did well, what teams did well, what teams did poorly, what players didn't do so well, and we're going to go by each week and then come up with our ratings of our top teams to go through each time.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I do not like the Patriots odds this season. I'll tell you right away. I do not. I think we played well. I'll let you guys know I'm a Patriots fan. I'm from Massachusetts. But I do not. I like Mac Jones, but I don't think he has any real future this season. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, let's start it off with the Lions-Chiefs.
There's good opening game. I will say.
What a game.
I will say we could have seen this coming.
It's not that surprising. I mean, especially with Travis Kelce and Chris Jones out, it's not that surprising that the Lions, the team that ended the season hottest of all teams last year, ends up coming out with a win. It's just surprising because it's the Chiefs, you know?
Well, I mean, okay, did the Chiefs... Who was their week 1 matchup last year?
Last year, the Chiefs played... I don't remember. Chiefs 2021 or 2022 matchup. Let's see. Last year they played the Cardinals and they destroyed that game.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's possible that we could also be just seeing some Super Bowl hangover.
It happened to the Rams last year in week 1. They had the opening game against the Bills and they got destroyed.
The Rams had a horrible season in general, but that's also due partly to injuries. And I think, we could be seeing something similar to the Chiefs. I mean, they're lacking a lot of key offensive pieces right now. They really don't have any receiving options.
It seemed like their top target this week was Kadarius Toney, and he did really.
He got cut.
Did he really?
Yeah, he got cut.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they cut him.
Kadarius Toney. Cut. I don't think they...
Oh, they haven't?
No, they have not cut Kadarius Toney.
I thought I saw somewhere that they cut him. My bad. But, I wouldn't doubt it at this point. He dropped... 10% of Mahomes' passes were dropped.
Well, yeah, he had 5 targets, 3 drops, and 1 resulted in a pick 6 for the Lions. Because it literally bounced out of his hands into the defender's hand. Brian Branch, rookie by the way, was the one with the interception. He looked pretty good for his first career start, getting a pick 6 off Patrick Mahomes. But overall, I mean, Jared Goff was 22 of 35, 250 yards and a touchdown. He played all right, just continuing his streak of games without an interception.
I benched him in fantasy. He's my backup quarterback.
Who's your starter?
Daniel Jones.
Oh, we'll get to that one.
Yeah.
But, I mean, compared to Patrick Mahomes, 21 of 39 for 220 and 2 touchdowns and an interception. Jared Goff honestly played a little better. 1 last touchdown, but no picks, even though the pick wasn't Mahomes' fault.
Yeah, I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes, and he's going to be able to do what he needs to do. But, at the end of the day, he doesn't really have any weapons right now. He doesn't have a go-to guy like Travis Kelce, like Tyreek Hill in years prior. He has no one, and the Chiefs really need to get him receiving options if they want to be contenders again this year. He'll be able to pull out some magic in weeks, but it's not consistent,
Yeah, I mean... looking at the rushing stats, David Montgomery, 3.5 yards a carry with a touchdown, 21 for 74. He did all right. Jahmyr Gibbs looked amazing in his start. He was really limited on the carries with only 7, but 6 yards a carry is pretty good for his start as a rookie.
I mean, these Alabama running backs consistently are having great rookie years. Najee had a great rookie year. I mean, Derrick Henry, I don't know how his rookie year went. I can't remember.
Derrick Henry actually didn't start his career off that strong,
really?
Funny enough. Not that he was bad, but he wasn't Derrick Henry at all at the start.
Yeah, I mean, Alabama running backs are going to be good no matter what in the league. It's kind of a given.
Receiving-wise, leading receiver for the Lions, I bet no one expected Josh Reynolds to lead them in receiving yards.
No.
I mean, he of course, their reception leader was Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6 for 71 and a touchdown. He looked really good.
He has potential to be a top 5 receiver this year.
No, he's so good. Sam Laporta had a great start for his rookie tight end season, 5 for 39, which honestly for a tight end, tight ends often have it really tough to like get started in the league. It's a huge adjustment to learn all the tight end all the plays that you have to know as a tight end. It's really complicated. So that's pretty good for his first start. Jahmyr Gibbs with a couple catches. Nothing else too big for the Lions. The Chiefs led in rushing. The Chiefs leader was Patrick Mahomes. So
and like coming off like an ankle injury last year, like I know it wasn't huge, but like still coming off.
Probably
an injury.
wasn't severe enough that it would have interfered with this year, but you're right. I mean, 6 for 45. Behind him was Isaiah Pacheco, 8 for 23.
2.9 yards a carry is that's embarrassing.
That's really bad.
That's embarrassing. And I was high on Pacheco coming into this year. I like Pacheco a lot.
I still think he'll do really well. I think it's really tough to get a full like scope of it off of 8 carries, but that's a really bad stat line.
Yeah.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire got a lot more work than I thought he would. They were using him a lot, especially at the beginning of the game. He had 6 carries compared to Isaiah Pacheco's 8. He had about the same amount of yards, just nearly as bad of a yards per carry, and did pretty much nothing special. And the Chiefs' leading receiver was Marquez Valdes-Scantling with 2 receptions for 48 yards. That's it.
Well, I'm telling you, he has no weapons to throw to right
Just
now.
wait for Kelsey to come back and go on a tear, though.
Yeah, but still, okay. Even without
That's still
Kelsey,
not
like
enough.
they don't even really have a number 2 receiver.
Last year they at least had Juju behind Kelsey. Like this year they have their next receiver is Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Maybe Justin Watson could have a breakout. He looked pretty good in that game. Rashee Rice, the rookie, looked really good, honestly, for his first start. 3 receptions, 29 yards, and a touchdown. Outside of that, they really have nothing. I mean Noah Gray, their backup tight end.
Kadarius Toney literally had 1 yard for 1 reception.
And he had 1 rush for -1 yards. Kadarius Toney had a total of 0 net yards. So, no wonder the Chiefs didn't do too well. I mean, not that they played bad, but
I mean, they still, they were within 1. They literally lost by 1 point. So it's not the end of the world, but I'm just saying that the Chiefs do have a lot of major problems for this season, and if they want to be Super Bowl contenders like how they have been these past couple of years, they're going to need to pick up some people. Like they cannot afford in a league that keeps getting better and better to stagnate.
Exactly. I mean, okay, let's move on. Let's move on to our next game. Bengals Browns. Oh boy, what a stinker from Joe Burrow.
Jeez. I mean, we don't know what his injury looks like, really, do we?
No, not much has been said, but like he was able to play in the game. I think he's mostly recovered. He just missed the entire offseason because of an injury, which is nothing new to him. He has missed he's missed each of his off seasons since he's joined the NFL. He has not been able to play in any of the off seasons for most of it. Due to injury, last year he had appendicitis. Like he's just had something come up every year, so that shouldn't have been enough. But he's looked rough now 2 years in a row in his opening game, which is a bit concerning.
This is a whole new level, though. Like
last year he had, I think, 5 interceptions. That was worse. This year he didn't do anything special, but he also did literally nothing wrong. He had 0 interceptions. He just had no work at all. He did 14 for 31, 82 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. That's, especially for coming off of the previous day having become the highest paid player in the NFL, that was a rough game. Really rough. Joe Mixon looked okay, 13 for 56. Nothing else too crazy in the rushing game.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase led the team in receiving work, and seeing as their quarterback had 82 yards, it's no surprise that Jamar had 39 yards on 5 receptions. What's really surprising is T. Higgins had 2 receptions for 10 yards on, I believe, like 8 or 9 targets. I'm looking at Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd had 2 for 10. T. Higgins had 0 yards, 0 catches.
Or was he?
He had 8 or 9 targets.
Yeah.
He had 0 receptions.
I mean, like, it's really hard to say, like, what went wrong in terms offensively. It just seemed like everyone was a little off step. Everyone was a little out of pace. I was high on the Bengals coming into this year. I think a lot of people are. I know that one of our friends thinks that this would have been Joe Burrow's MVP season. While I don't agree with that, I think Joe Burrow clearly has been progressing year after year, and this is not a good sign at all, needless to say.
No.
But also Burrow famously cannot play against the Browns.
But they won their last game against the Browns. They actually did.
I think he might be like 1-5 against the Browns.
He's 1-5. Yeah.
Yeah.
On defense, we didn't really talk much about the Lions or Chiefs defense because honestly, the Chiefs defense didn't look anything special. They were missing Chris Jones. The only thing that really stood out on the Lions defense was Aiden Hutchinson looks so good.
Why are we
because we never mentioned their defenses, but looking at the Bengals defense, I mean Jermaine Pratt one sack, Trey Hendrickson looked pretty good, 1 sack, Daxton Hill had an interception, but the Browns defense was on a whole nother level. I mean they let up 3 points the whole game. They had Ogbonna Okoronkwo had a sack. Myles Garrett had a sack. Overall, they look pretty good. Nick Chubb always looks great. 18 for 106 yards.
I mean, Deshaun didn't do anything that remarkable.
No, he still is yet to prove that he is anything after what they've paid him.
I mean, it's the highest. It's the most guaranteed money in NFL history when he was signed. Like, You're paying someone who has how many, it has to be brought up, but like 30 sexual assault allegations, who is not doing anything. I mean, the Browns are going to Brown. The Browns will never have consistency at quarterback. They had a good year with Baker Mayfield a couple of years ago, and now they're back to being the Browns again. Deshaun has not been anything that remarkable since he was in his early years in Houston. Deshaun is not a great player anymore.
For reference,
and his off the field issues are so prevalent that I don't think you can keep him on the team. I think it's ridiculous.
You can't at this point. They can't get rid of him. He is the most. He still has the most guaranteed money of any player. There would be so much dead cap they can't do it.
I know they can't do it, but it's ridiculous in the first place that they did it.
He did.
A win is a win, but he's not doing anything to really justify that money.
For reference, his stats were 16 for 29 for 154 yards, a touchdown and an interception. But then he also ran for 5 for 45 and a touchdown. So he looked better. He looked a little better and a little more decisive. But overall, he still did not look like prime Deshaun Watson or anything even close to it. Elijah Moore looked pretty good starting off his Browns career. Looks a lot better than he did on the Jets. Amari Cooper, 3 for 37.
I mean, the receiving game was okay. It was just okay. I mean, it really seems like the rushing attack was what led this. I will say Deshaun did a pretty good job running. 5 carries for 45 yards, 9 yards a carry with a rushing touchdown is pretty good on the ground, but he didn't do anything remarkable in the pass game. Moving on, though. I think that's enough on that game. Texans-Ravens. I mean, listen, CJ Stroud...
44 pass attempts for his first career game. 44. They were doing him no favors here.
I mean, listen, the Texans are another franchise like the Browns who are just never going to really do anything that remarkable. They had one of the best defensive talents ever and an incredible quarterback and a great receiver, and they were never able to do anything. It was like the Lions with Calvin Johnson and Matt Stafford. It's ridiculous. But,
CJ Stroud didn't look bad, especially given the fact that he's a rookie in his first NFL start. 28 for 44 for 240 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He didn't look amazing, but he showed some promise. His completion percentage wasn't awful, and he didn't throw any picks on 44 attempts, which is pretty impressive, actually.
No, that is.
Dameon Pierce looked fine, 11 for 38. Their running game really couldn't get started. Devin Singletary looked kind of bad, 7 for 15. Receiving-wise, Nico Collins had a pretty good game, 6 for 80 yards, and Robert Woods right behind him, 6 for 57. Outside of that, no one else really did anything too incredible. So...
I mean, they didn't score a single receiving... They didn't score a touchdown all game.
Yeah.
I mean... They got into the red zone enough to 3 times at the minimum. It's
they
kind
had
of
3 field goals and that's it. Lamar. On the other hand, the Ravens,
Lamar did not have a good
and
day.
the Texans defense did nothing special at all. I mean, they
Will
had
Anderson's debut, though.
Will Anderson looked pretty good. He had a sack in his debut. I mean, that's about it.
I mean, I think Will Anderson will be a good defensive talent. He's a great edge rusher, got great size, great speed. We knew this in college. He looked incredible at Alabama, especially not... He looked pretty good last year, but the year before he was one of the best defensive seasons in college football history. Like, he's going to be good in the NFL. I'm not worried about Will Anderson. He clearly showed he can do more.
Other than that, Jonathan Greenard had a sack, Christian Harris had a sack, and Steven Nelson had an interception. On the Ravens side of on the Ravens offense, Lamar Jackson was 17 of 22 for 169 yards and an interception. Not great. I mean, pretty high completion percentage, but no passing touchdowns, only 170 yards. He also did have 6 carries for 38 yards, no touchdowns. Gus Edwards had 8 carries for 30 yards. J.K. Dobbins, oh boy, he cannot stay healthy. That is now officially 9 games played in 3 years. 9 games. Because he is out now for a season with a torn Achilles. He did have a touchdown. Justice Hill looked really bad. He, for some reason, had 8 carries as well as Gus Edwards. He was 8 carries for 9 yards, 2 touchdowns.
As well as the Ravens did play, they were able to get it off an easy win against a very easy team. I think they're missing the playoffs.
I disagree with you. I think this is a rough start because their offense really didn't get going. Their receiving leader was Zay Flowers, the rookie, who looked actually really good. 9 for 78 is pretty good. But OBJ had 2 for 37. Rashad Bateman 3 for 35. No receiving touchdowns. Mark Andrews did miss this game, so it's a little hard to say how he'll truly look. But all of their touchdowns were on the ground, which makes sense. It's the Ravens. But without J.K. Dobbins, their running backs are really not that good.
I mean, okay, the AFC North, they went 50% on the day in terms of winning. I mean, 2 of those teams played each other, but still, like, the AFC North does not look that good. It does not look like a good division. It looks like a division that's just going to cannibalize itself.
I was going into the season, I had confidence that was going to be the best division in football, and I still think it could be, but this was a really rough week 1 showing. The Ravens did have a bunch of sacks, though. They had a lot of guys with sacks. They did pretty well on defense, I will say. Moving on, we've got we've got the Buccaneers versus the Vikings. Vikings coming off a 13-win season, most of those games being one-score games.
Yep.
Guess what? Week 1, they lose a one-score game. They did not lose a single one-score game last year. They won all of them.
And against a team that no one expects to be that good.
Baker Mayfield actually didn't look that bad. 21 for 34, 173 and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Their running game really could not get going. Just like last year, they had the worst rushing attack in the NFL. They seem to continue that pace. Rashad White, their leading rusher, 17 for 39, 2 yards a carry. The receiving game looked fine. I mean, again, they have Baker as their quarterback. He's not going to be anything special. But there were no interceptions. Mike Evans, 6 for 66 and a touchdown. Chris Godwin, 5 for 51.
I mean, OU quarterbacks just are never going to be that good in the NFL. We have, I cannot name a great OU quarterback.
You could argue Kyler, but even him, he has some question marks around him, too.
Kyler is not going to be that good, but... I mean, we won't even.
He's had some good seasons, but he's got question marks.
He's going to get replaced by Caleb Williams.
I don't think that's a problem. I don't think that's any sign, though, of Kyler Murray being bad as much as it is that Caleb Williams is going to be amazing.
He's under so much money, though.
Yeah.
And they're still going to sign... If they have that number 1 pick, they're going to take Caleb Williams, and then they're just going to be sitting a really expensive quarterback.
Yeah. Other than that, they had a couple sacks. Antoine Winfield, Anthony Nelson, and Christian Isian had an interception. But their defense, I guess for it being the Vikings offense, their defense didn't do bad. But looking at the Vikings offense, I mean, Kirk Cousins had a lot of yards. Did not look good for the Buccaneers defense.
He also threw 44 passes, though.
Kirk Cousins was 33 for 44 for 344 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Alexander Mattison in not his first career start, but his first start as the lead back going into the year, he looked kind of bad. 11 for 34. Justin Jefferson always looking amazing.
I mean, he's the clear wide receiver 1 again.
Yeah, especially with Jamar Chase and the Bengals offense looking kind of lackluster, and Cooper Kupp being on IR now. It is very clearly Justin Jefferson, with the exception of Tyreek Hill, who we'll get into in a bit.
Of course.
But Justin Jefferson was 9 for 150, no touchdowns.
I mean,
though.
Jordan Addison, in his first
he had a big touchdown
really good.
He scored the first touchdown out of that game. He looked pretty good.
I'm high on him. I think he'll be really good. I think it adds a lot of depth to the Vikings offense. And do I think the Vikings offense is going to be their offense is going to be good. I think Kirk Cousins gets a lot of shit in this league. I think he gets a lot of hard time for not being able to really do it in the playoffs, not being able to do it in prime time. But he is statistically a pretty good quarterback. And so if you're going to give him 2 great weapons like Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, even TJ Hawkinson as their tight end, he's going to be able to put up the numbers.
I mean, Hawkinson did kind of mediocre. 8 receptions, only 35 yards.
I mean, they just have a...
But he tends to be pretty good. They
do not have a good defense.
Their defense is the biggest problem with their team. Last year it let them down. It's the reason they didn't go any further in the playoffs. They didn't even win 1 game. On defense, though, seeing as their defense is as bad as it is, they had 1 sack, no interceptions against Baker Mayfield. Daniil Hunter, of course, was the one with the sack. Outside of that, though, their defense is quite bad. Next game we'll look at is the Panthers-Falcons. Bryce Young, 2 interceptions, both of them to Jesse Bates. Jesse Bates in his Falcons debut looked so good. 2 interceptions off the rookie. But Bryce Young, other than that, he had a touchdown, only 140 yards. Miles Sanders looked fine on the ground, 18 for 72. Chuba Hubbard, 9 for 60. He looked pretty good.
Okay, I will say this about Bryce Young, though. I think that he is not, he's not going to be all that. He's so small. And yes, did he have an incredible year 2 years ago at Bama? An incredible Heisman year? Of course. But last year, he looked nothing special, lost 2 games at Alabama. Look, when we played him last year in Austin, when Texas played, he was getting absolutely manhandled, could not escape our defensive line. I don't think Bryce Young is going to be anything special. I think I think he'll be a solid, maybe spot starter, backup, maybe. But I think in 2-3 years' time, Bryce Young is not going to be anything special.
That's a bold call. Yeah. I think he needs a little more time before we can truly determine anything. He's only had 1 NFL start.
I wasn't really high on him coming into the league, though.
His floor, the thing about him is his floor seems to be a lot higher than a lot of quarterbacks. However, with his size, there are definitely some concerns. Especially after a down last year being a little worse than his previous.
Yeah.
Receiving wise, that I don't think they did him any favors. I think that is
that is true.
Right now, his leading receiver was their tight end, Hayden Hurst, 5 for 41 and a touchdown. Behind him was their running back, Miles Sanders, 4 for 26. Their top receiver had 20 yards.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think that he will be someone who can lead the Panthers out of something if the Panthers don't give him the weapons he needs. Someone like Andrew Luck, these truly generational number 1 overall pick quarterbacks that are supposed to be the savior of a franchise.
That's not what Bryce Young is.
That's not what Bryce Young is, and so I don't know if you can really justify taking him at number 1 like they did. I'm not going to, I don't crash and be like it's a bust already because that's way too early to call. But I will say that they are going to need to add some pieces in years to come because this was just not.
There's a lot of examples of number 1 overall quarterbacks who aren't generational prospects not working out. There's a lot of first-round quarterbacks who are not generational prospects not working out. However, this is way too early to call. Let's come back to to him at the end of the season and the next season. Let's give him a year or two to develop. On defense, though, they did pretty well. Derek Brown with a sack. Brian Burns always looking good. 1.5 sacks. Frankie Louvu just continues his rise. 1 sack. And then Shai Tuttle, their offseason acquisition, had half a sack. The Falcons, Desmond Ridder, only 18 pass attempts, 15 for 18 for 115 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions. He did really nothing to wow. They really did not seem to trust him this game.
I mean, he had a game manager performance.
Yeah, he had a very game manager performance. He had a very high completion percentage, but only 100 yards, 1 touchdown, nothing special. Rushing wise, big surprise here was that Tyler Algier actually led the carries. Bijan led in yards per carry, but only by a little bit. Tyler Algier was 15 for 75 with 2 touchdowns. Bijan was 10 for 56. No rushing touchdowns, but did have a receiving touchdown.
Yeah,
and 6 receptions.
And also that receiving touchdown was like a screen pass. It was basically, a rush. But like Bijan, he looked great.
He looked really good. Great first great welcome to the NFL moment with his first touchdown. He looked really, really good. I can't wait to see him get more and more implemented into this offense and take over in future weeks. But Algier looks really good doing it too.
Yeah, I mean, as a whole, Bijan looking great. It was the Texas Alabama game was a great week for Texas football.
Great week for Texas football. Receiving wise, Kyle Pitts, 2 receptions, 44 yards. He had 1 really spectacular catch. Mm-hmm. Other than that, really nothing too special on offense.
I mean, I think Kyle Pitts can, be something decent if he can stay healthy.
The biggest surprise here was that Drake London only had 1 target the whole game and 0 receptions. I really was expecting a breakout year from Drake London after last year where he started off the year with Marcus Mariota as his quarterback, and that was why he was not getting the ball thrown to a lot because they were such a run-heavy team. And then Desmond Ridder took over at the end of the year, and Drake London started doing a lot better. So I expected a huge jump from him now that Desmond Ridder is his quarterback going into the season. But they really did not trust Desmond Ridder to pass it. There's a reason Drake London only had 1 target.
Mm-hmm.
And then as for defense, as I said, Jesse Bates, 2 interceptions. He looked really good. Lorenzo Carter had a sack. Yeah. Moving on, we've got the Cardinals Commanders.
AKA shit show.
Well,
tank ball.
So that's what I would have said going into this game, but I don't even know if the Commanders are going to get last in their division after this week.
It's true, the Giants did look worse.
The Giants did look way worse. But let's talk about the Cardinals. Joshua Dobbs did about as mediocre as expected. 21 for 30 for 130 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Josh Dobbs, I mean, he's not going to be anything special. You know what he is. He's about as mediocre to below average as you can possibly get. James Conner, 14 for 62. Marquise Brown had a rush for 29 yards. Receiving wise, their top receiver was Rondale Moore with 3 receptions for 33 yards, and Marquise Brown with also 30 yards. Their receiving game looked atrocious.
I mean, they have nothing. They have no quarterback. They have no receivers. I don't know what you expect them to do. This is a tank year for them. They have probably 2 top 5 picks based on the way the Texans played today. Like, that's what it looks like right now. I don't see them trying to do anything special. They're trying to get Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison.
No, there's no way they're gonna. There's no way they have any hope for the season. But they look better than expected coming off the first game, especially their defense. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks as a defense and an interception. They looked pretty good on defense. Which is more than I could have said going into the game. On the other side of the ball, Sam Howell, 19 for 30 for 200 yards, a touchdown and an interception. Honestly, he looked fine. His touchdown was pretty good. It was a scramble and then a throw deep into the end zone while in the red zone. He had pretty good red zone efficiency. Brian Robinson, rushing wise, 19 for 59. He was not very good. And Antonio Gibson, they gave up on completely. He had 3 carries the whole game. They really just trusted Brian Robinson, and he didn't show anything that spectacular. Receiving-wise, we had a bit of a surprise, though. Terry McLaurin, only 2 receptions for 30 yards. Curtis Samuel, however, 5 for 54, and Logan Thomas, their tight end, 4 for 43.
Well, Terry McLaurin was questionable before this game, so I think
was he?
I think it's probably something to do with injury management.
Jahan Dotson also looked pretty good, 5 for 40.
Jahan Dotson.
Defense-wise, Montez Sweat looked amazing, 1.5 sacks. Jonathan Allen had a sack.
I don't know. I think this is kind of one of the most irrelevant games of the week. I don't think it really plays a factor into any type of race besides the Tank Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. Next, we got another divisional matchup, because there were a couple of those this week. We got the Jags versus the Colts. And honestly, this game was a lot closer than I expected it to be. I thought it was 100. It's Anthony Richardson's first start. They don't have Jonathan Taylor. I thought there was no chance the Jags weren't going to win this, and I thought it wasn't even going to be close. But the Colts were in this game the whole time.
Still a 2-score game, though.
It was, but the Colts were in the game for the entire time. The Jags scored 14 in the last quarter, when the Colts scored none. That's the only thing that kept the Jags as a win.
Yeah, I mean, solid performance from Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence, 24 of 30, 241, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Travis Etienne looked really good, 18 for 77 and a touchdown. He had a big breakaway touchdown, and Tank Bigsby, he had a touchdown on his first game as a rookie, but rushing wise, not very efficient. 2 yards a carry. Receiving wise, this is what we wanted to see from Calvin Ridley. 8 for 101 yards and a touchdown. He did nearly fumble, but he recovered it. He looked so electric, so good. The player that we saw 2 years ago before he took a mental health break and then was suspended for a year, he looked like that player again. I'm so excited to see where he goes this season. Zay Jones also looked really good, their third receiver, 5 for 55 and a touchdown. His touchdown catch was really remarkable. Evan Engram, just like all of last year, looked really good. He had one really nice catch late in the game, 5 for 49. Travis Etienne, a couple catches. Christian Kirk, only 1 catch the whole game, though.
I mean, I think that the Jags are starting to put some really solid pieces around Trevor Lawrence. I really like what they're doing. I think that they could, they'll probably win their division this year.
I think it's pretty given that they're going to win their division. I mean, I think the other 3 teams in their division will be a little improved from last year. Well, maybe not the Titans. The Titans could be worse than last year. But the Colts seem to have gotten a few more promising pieces. Maybe they'll have Jonathan Taylor return after week 4 when he's off the PUP list. Maybe he'll contribute at some point. But I think the Colts could look better with Anthony Richardson. The Texans should look better with C.J. Stroud over Davis Mills. But it's still the Jags' division to lose. I mean, their defense even looked... Granted, it was the Colts, but Josh Allen on their defense had 3 sacks. He looked really good. The Colts on offense, Anthony Richardson, 24 of 37 for 220 yards, a touchdown and an interception. He did get hurt late in the game. Didn't seem like anything too serious. But Gardner Minshew did come in, didn't complete a pass.
The GOAT.
Anthony Richardson also did rush 10 times in his debut. 10 for 40 and a touchdown. Pretty nice rushing touchdown.
I mean, he has those intangibles. He has those, just pure raw athleticism.
He's massive.
He is huge. I think, I think he probably has the highest upside of any quarterback in this class by far.
But he also has the lowest floor.
He does have the lowest floor. I mean, well, if we're including second-round quarterbacks, Will Levis has the lowest floor.
Okay, yeah. But I meant of the first 3 quarterbacks off the board.
Yeah, of course. But if he can stay healthy, if he can keep it up, I don't think he'll have. These type of athletics quarterbacks don't really normally have the longest type of careers that are normally very sustainable. But I think he can be really good for the Colts. He just he needs a couple more pieces.
He was the only good part though about their running game. Anthony Richardson with 4 yards a carry. Their leading rusher was Deion Jackson, 13 carries, 14 yards.
I mean, they don't have a running back.
They don't have a running back right now. They did it to themselves. They wouldn't pay Jonathan Taylor, the perfect weapon to have for your young developing quarterback. They didn't pay him. So it's also power to the Jags defense. They really did shut down the run, but it's no surprise when your top running back is Deion Jackson. Looking at the receiving game, Michael Pittman, he had a breakaway touchdown, 8 for 97 and a touchdown. He looked pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know who Kyle Granson is. I assume that's one of their. Oh, he's got to be one of their tight ends because they had Jelani Woods and I'm forgetting who their other tight end is, but they had them both on the injury list, so neither of them were active. Josh Downs in his first career game, 3 for 30, looked pretty fine. Nothing else too special. DeForest Buckner had a sack. Kwity Paye had a sack. DeForest Buckner did also have a nice fumble return touchdown. That play was just one of the weirdest plays of the weekend. It seemed like neither team even knew that the ball was still live, and then all of a sudden you see DeForest Buckner sprinting across your screen, running a touchdown back, to the shock of the Jaguars, who must have thought the ball was dead.
I don't know. I don't think the Colts are going to do anything that special this season. They'll probably get 2 or 3 wins on the year, if that. Maybe 4 or 5 if they're lucky. I don't feel a reason that they really need this much discussion. But, I mean, the 49ers-Steelers, what a blowout.
A game. It was a blowout from the start. Brock Purdy was pretty good. 19-29, 220, and 2 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey also looked amazing. 22 for 150 yards, 7 yards a carry, and a touchdown. He also had a huge 65-yard rushing touchdown.
Yeah, that was an incredible run.
Brandon Ayuk, immediately off the bat, he was killing it the whole game. 8 for 129 and 2 touchdowns, 16 yards a catch. I mean, this game was never close. It was 30-7 by the end of it. They ended the first quarter. The Steelers didn't score until the last drive. They had 1 yard of offense compared to the Niners' 199 yards going into the last drive of the first half. It was a rough game for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners look good and the Steelers look bad. We kind of knew this. I don't think that this is a shock to anyone. I think that the Niners will be good all year. I think that the Steelers will be mediocre. I think this will probably actually be the first year that they finish under 500.
I would be surprised if the Steelers finished under 500 after ending positive last year. However, their division got harder. So it's not out of the question. Niners defense, though, looked really good.
As usual.
Talanoa Hufanga with an interception. Charvarius Mooney-Ward with an interception. They had Drake Jackson with 3 sacks and Javon Hargraves, their big offseason acquisition, had a sack. Steelers, though, Kenny Pickett looked kind of mid. He was not very good. 31 for 46, 200 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Najee only had 6 carries the whole game. He looked fine.
I'm so glad I took him in fantasy again.
What a mistake. He might let down 2 years in a row.
Yep, had him last year in fantasy too. I don't know why I did this.
Yeah. And Allen Robinson, 5 for 64. He was their leading receiver. Deontay Johnson, he was hurt for part of the game. He had 3 receptions for 48 yards. George Pickens he was okay. 5 for 36. Nothing too special. And Pat Freiermuth had a nice touchdown.
They're mid. They're so aggressively mid. They have a mid quarterback. It seems like they kind of have a mid running back. They have no real receiving options. Their defense is good. It has pieces, but they're not going to do anything special this year. They're missing the playoffs again.
Yeah. Especially because their division just got harder.
Yep.
Let's talk about Titans Saints. Final score 15-16.
What a boring game.
Boring game. Ryan Tannehill looked downright awful. He had less than a 50% completion rate, 3 interceptions. Derrick Henry, of course, looked good. It's Derrick Henry. But even he seemed just subpar to Derrick Henry's standards. Tyjae Spears, the rookie running back, honestly did pretty good in his limited work. 3 for 27, 9 yards a carry. DeAndre Hopkins, though, he looked so good. Even on another team, he's their clear number 1 weapon. They used him way more than they used Derrick Henry. Or no, he was more effective, than Derrick Henry. But he had 12 or 13 targets in that game, 7 for 65.
I would so love to see DeAndre Hopkins on a team with a good quarterback.
Wouldn't we all? But he chose to go there. So he chose to go to the team where receivers go to die.
He's been with nothing, but it feels like, Deshaun was good for a little bit.
Deshaun Watson was pretty good, though, when he was with DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, and then And then he was with Kyler,
who was good for one season,
1
but
year.
missed a lot of time over the past 2 years.
And now he's with Ryan Tannehill. Like, why is he doing
with
this
Will
to his
Levis
career?
and Malik Willis on the roster.
It's so embarrassing.
The only other receiving work was Nick Westbrook-Akine had 4 for 58. Derrick Henry had one big screen pass, 2 for 56. And I mean, they had Amani Hooker had an interception off of Derek Carr. Jeffrey Simmons had a sack. Danico Autry had 1.5 sacks. Their defense always looks pretty good, but their offense cannot make up for the lack of their defense cannot make up for the lack of offense this year. Their offense just looks abysmal. Besides Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins,
of course.
For the Saints offense, Derek Carr pretty solid first game, 23 for 33, 300 yards, a touchdown and an interception. They had minimal rushing game. Jamal Williams, 18 for 45, 2.5 yards a carry. Obviously, Alvin Kamara's out due to suspension for the first 3 weeks. And I was really high on Jamal Williams after his incredible performance last year.
He was literally a goal line merchant.
But he also had over 1,000 yards last year.
Yes.
And he looked really good.
Yeah,
he
good.
passed the eye test. And he honestly passed the eye test in this game too, but he had a lot of really bad carries on this game. Receiving wise,
I mean, he's also playing behind a worse O-line though.
Did they lose pieces on their O-line?
No, I'm just saying that, playing for the Lions O-line, who had been slowly putting together a really good O-line over the past couple of years, especially with Penei Sewell, he's just playing behind a worse O-line, so who knows how much of that is actually due to the O-line.
Fair enough. Receiving wise, Chris Olave, what a game. 8 for 112. He's looking just so good.
He's good. Ohio State receivers are good.
Rashid Shaheed coming in with a big surprise. He had a really decent rookie season for as late of a draft pick as he was last year. He was 5 for 89 and a touchdown. He had a big catch, a big crucial catch to close out the game. Michael Thomas, the return of Michael Thomas for a few weeks, just like we had last year, looked pretty good, 5 for 61. And then Juwan Johnson had a couple catches at tight end. They also did have 3 interceptions off Tannehill. Marcus May with an interception. Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo all had interceptions. Up next, we've got the Raiders-Broncos. Ended Raiders win 17-16. Oh boy. The Broncos started off this game with an onside kick. What an exciting first play in the Sean Payton era, but they still lost. Jimmy Garoppolo, pretty high completion percentage, 20 for 26, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception.
He's a game manager.
But their running game never got going. Josh Jacobs, the leading rusher of last year, week 1, 19 for 48, 2.5 yards a carry. Jimmy Garoppolo had 9 rushing attempts. That's got to be a career high. There's no... What? 1 yard per carry, though. So it's not like it was working out too well. Receiving-wise, Jacoby Myers...
Had a good game.
Quite a good game.
I'm telling you, he was playing for the Raiders all last season.
just in the Raiders-Pats game.
Yep.
Jacoby Myers, 9 for 81 and 2 touchdowns. Devontae Adams always looks good, 6 for 66. Nothing else too special. Austin Hooper had a nice catch, though. Defense, Max Crosby had a sack.
He'll always be good.
Max Crosby he's so good. But they were missing Chandler Jones who may not return to the team after the incident he faced with the team, where he was locked out of their practice facility and then started throwing a fit online. On the other hand, the Broncos offense, they never got going incredibly well. I mean, Russell Wilson, he did have 2 touchdowns, but less than 200 yards. Fine, good enough completion percentage at 27 of 34. Javonte Williams looked pretty good carrying the ball, 13 for 52, coming off that, what was it, an ACL tear, I think it was?
Maybe. That sounds right.
Samaje Perine leading the backup role, 8 for 41, 5 yards a carry. He also was their leading receiver, 4 for 37 and 9 yards a catch. Adam
I mean,
Troutman was there too.
They're
and
missing their number one receiver.
They're missing their number 1 and 3. Tim Patrick will not be back the whole year. He's missing the whole year, back-to-back years. They are also missing Jerry Jeudy. Cortland Sutton just had an okay game, 4 for 32 and a touchdown. Their defense looked pretty good, just like it did all of last year, but their offense couldn't score over 20 points, just like all of last year.
I don't think Russ is gonna be anything. I think he might be done. I think we're done seeing a productive Russ.
He looked improved from last year, but definitely still did not look like the Russ of old. Less than 200 yards is disappointing, but he didn't have any interceptions, and he did throw 2 touchdowns, which is more than he could say for most of the first half of last season.
That is true. But here's what I'm saying is that the money they're paying him is just not worth what they're getting at all.
Oh, no, not at all.
It's ridiculous, and the amount of draft picks they gave up to get him.
Oh, yeah.
And, have you seen who the Seahawks have gotten with those draft picks?
Yeah, so, they've gotten some special players.
I mean, who was the...
They just drafted Devin Witherspoon.
Devin Witherspoon.
I'm pretty sure that Kenneth Walker was from the Russell Wilson trade as well. I mean, they really made an entire playoff roster. Well, supposedly playoff roster. We'll get to that in a minute when we talk about that game. But first we'll talk about the Eagles-Patriots. I'm sure you're not too happy about this one.
I mean, it was a good game. I'll give him that. It was way closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought Mac actually looked pretty good the whole game. Better
than any game last year because the offense was no longer a Matt Patricia offense. It looked a lot better with Bill O'Brien.
Here's what I'll say is that Mac has the ability to be a pretty good quarterback to make throws. At the end of the game, the Eagles had a great defensive play where the corner pushed our receiver out of bounds basically as he was dragging his foot. It was a great heads-up defensive play. If he gets his foot in, then we're in field goal range, and then we're probably you were
down 25-20 though, so even a field goal wouldn't.
Yeah, I know, but then we're in the red zone basically, and then I think the chances of us winning are
unfortunately
possible.
The rookie. It was Keyshawn Boutte, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the rookie couldn't get his feet down, turnover on downs, and the game was over. But Mac Jones looked pretty good. 35 on 54 passing attempts. They really trusted him this game. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception.
I mean, an interception against that Eagles defense, especially that Eagles secondary.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't even his fault. I think it was deflected. I could be wrong about that. Ezekiel Elliott, 7 for 29. He actually looked better than Ramondre Stevenson, surprisingly. He had more yards on less carries. Ramondre Stevenson just looked sluggish. He was 12 for 25. I had such high hopes for him, and I still think he'll bounce back. It was the Eagles' defense after all.
True.
But the fact that Zeke looked better is concerning.
I mean, we're basically playing the Georgia front 7.
Yeah. Receiving-wise, Kendrick Bourne seemed to have, honestly, kind of a breakout game after last year.
I'm high on Kendrick Bourne.
He was barely used last year.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I like what he can do. I really do like Kendrick Bourne's game. I've always been, to be honest, I've always really liked Kendrick Bourne. I was never a big Jacoby Myers fan. I think Juju, he didn't do much. Mike Gesicki didn't do much. Hunter Henry was okay.
Ramondre Stevenson, though,
he was
6 for 64. Back. Hunter Henry was pretty good, 5 for 56 and a touchdown. And Kendrick Bourne, 6 for 64 and 2 touchdowns. Your receiving game looked a lot better than it did for most of last year.
Yeah.
But Juju was basically nowhere to be seen for him being the number 1 receiver.
Yeah, I think our defense is good. Giving up 25 points against the Eagles offense is nothing to be really that ashamed of.
Yeah. Christian Gonzalez, the rookie, had a sack.
Yeah.
He also had 5 tackles.
He's good.
He looked pretty good.
I really like that pick. I liked it when it happened. I think he'll be good. I think we've built a pretty good secondary.
And then Matthew Judon and Josh Uche both had a sack as well.
Yeah.
Eagles offense, Jalen Hurts. Honestly, the Patriots defense did so well. Jalen Hurts he looked human. He was 22 for 33, 170 yards and a touchdown. The biggest surprise for me for the Eagles offense was Kenneth Gainwell. He was by far their leading rusher. They signed DeAndre Swift, they bring in Rashad Penny in the offseason, and yet they go to Kenneth Gainwell for game 1. I bet this... What do you think of this backfield? I think it'll switch up every week. There'll be a new lead rusher. They'll follow the hot hand. But this week, Kenneth Gainwell, 14 for 54. Their next leading rusher was Jalen Hurts. And then besides that, DeAndre Swift had 1 carry, Boston Scott had 1 carry, and Rashad Penny was inactive. Coach's decision. He was just a healthy scratch.
I mean, I think they'll probably split touches over this year. I think that's kind of the versatility of this Eagles backfield, is that especially with a mobile quarterback like Jalen Hurts, you never really know what they're going to do. I'm interested to see, though. The Eagles are going to be good. That there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to win the division. Even though the Cowboys did look great.
The Cowboys looked even better, though, so there is a little bit of doubt.
We'll get to the Cowboys, but I think that when it comes down to it, the Eagles are a better team. They're a better coach team. They have a better quarterback. They have better receivers. I think they have who knows about their defense now compared to the Cowboys, because, we'll get there. I'll save that. But no, the Eagles looked great, and even though I love the Patriots and I thought they played really well, I didn't expect us to win this. And, what kind of happened.
Receiving-wise, A.J. Brown, 7 for 79. Devontae Smith, 7 for 50 and a touchdown. And defensively, in his first career game, Jalen Carter had a sack. That's pretty good.
It's Jalen Carter.
It
was late in the game, too.
Biggest upset, in my opinion, of the week was the Rams over the Seahawks.
Yeah.
30-13. It wasn't even close. Rams were missing Cooper Kupp in this game. Their leading receiver was Puka Nacua, a 5th-round rookie who had 120 yards, tied with Tutu Atwell, who was a 6th or 7th-round rookie last year, who also had 119 yards.
I've never even heard of either of these guys.
Yeah, these were their 2 leading receivers. Matthew Stafford had an amazing game for not having Cooper Kupp. 24 of 38 for 330 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Kyron Williams was pretty decent, and he was okay at rushing, 15 for 52 for 2 touchdowns. Cam Akers looked really slow, really not that good, 22 of 29 for 1 touchdown, only a yard per carry. Their offense their passing game just got going with these 2 young players who were both late-round picks. It's a big surprise.
Yeah.
Their defense really has no big names anymore besides Aaron Donald, who had half a sack. Other than that, their defense is all young, all kind of smaller names.
The Rams made it work with a bunch of basically scrap pieces, which is really impressive.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, we got Geno Smith had 16 for 26, 112 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions.
Not a great performance.
It could have been worse. He didn't have any interceptions, but really not enough yards. Kenneth Walker looked really good, 12 for 64. Zach Charbonnet looked fine in his first game, 3 for 11. Especially given that they were both coming off injuries during the offseason. Honestly, their running game didn't look that bad, but their receiving game was pretty disappointing. Tyler Lockett did get taken out partway through the game with an injury, but he only had 2 catches. Jackson Smith-Njigba only had 13 yards on 3 catches in his first NFL game. DK Metcalf looked fine, 3 for 47 and a touchdown, but that's really about it.
Listen, I was really high on their receiving core before this. I really like DK. I think Tyler is a great receiver. I was really high on Jackson Smith-Njigba coming into the season, but in this opener they did not look great. They looked stagnant. They looked slow. They looked sloppy, and
against a bad defense too. Maybe I'm underrating them, but it's a defense with Aaron Donald and a bunch of players who most NFL fans do not even know the names of.
Listen, I think that this is the start to the season. I think it's too soon to call.
Yeah.
But I wonder at what point in the season do we start to ask, is this Seahawks team, was it a fluke last year?
It could have been.
It's too early to call, but we'll see.
The Seahawks on defense did really bad. Yeah. 0 sacks, 0 interceptions, gave up 30 points to the Rams, as I said, with 2 receivers who have barely played any football in the NFL. Just disappointing showing from their defense.
The shootout of the week, though.
This was probably the game of the week. 36-34, the Dolphins beat the Chargers. What a game. Tua looking just amazing coming off the concussions. 28 of 45 for 466 yards and 3 touchdowns. He did have 1 pick that wasn't... it was a not great throw, but outside of that 1 throw, ton of yards, just really effective. Raheem Mostert on the ground. Jeff Wilson was injured, and their rookie Devon Achane for some reason was healthy scratch. But Raheem Mostert led the backfield, only 3.5 yards a carry, but he did have a touchdown. Tyreek Hill in the receiving game was all you could have possibly asked for. 11 receptions, 215 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He was easily the best receiver this week. Only player who was even only players who were even close were Brandon Ayuk and Justin Jefferson.
I mean, he's other human. He does this year after year after
And he's
year.
only gotten better since leaving Mahomes, which
That doesn't seem possible.
It seems impossible, but he was much better with Tua last year. He had a career high in receptions and receiving yards last year. I think he's just a more integral part of this offense than he was on the Chiefs, because the Chiefs have Kelsey as well.
Yeah.
But that
the
leaves
Dolphins
out,
also
they
have Jalen Waddle.
They have Jalen Waddle.
Who is
Jalen Waddle was also really good. He also had both Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill had 19.5 yards a catch. Jalen Waddle only had 4 catches to Tyreek's 11 though. Braxton Berrios came up with a few really big plays on third down. He was 3 for 42. He was a okay offseason acquisition at receiver. And then their defense was really, they let up a lot of points and a lot of yards, but they clamped down when it mattered most, and they got some sacks. They even got they had a sack to end the game. Jalen Phillips had half a sack, and I forget who the other one was who had half a sack with him. I think it was Justin Bethel. But they clamped down on Herbert on fourth down and ended the game on defense. Chargers, Justin Herbert looked fine. 23 of 33, 230 yards and a touchdown, no interceptions.
I mean, it really feels like he's starting to slow down from his really hot start to a career.
Give him a chance this year, though, with the new offensive coordinator. Let him get used to him. It should only improve him now that it's going to be a lot less checkdowns. But we'll see. Austin Eckler looked amazing. 16 for 117, huge breakaway rushing touchdown. Or no, I don't think he scored, but it was a huge breakaway play. 1 touchdown. Joshua Kelly, their backup, also had 16 carries, 91 yards, also almost 6 yards a carry, and a touchdown. Justin Herbert had a rushing touchdown as well. Receiving wise, Keenan Allen just looking really good, 6 for 76. Austin Eckler, 4 for 50. Mike Williams, 4 for 50. Quentin Johnston, in his rookie debut, only 2 receptions for 9 yards. A little disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think both of these teams played really well. It's a real shame that one of them had to lose. I think both offenses were high flying.
But both defenses let up a lot of yards, a lot of points, and honestly, the Chargers didn't get enough. They didn't get any sacks. They had 1 interception compared to the Dolphins, who had a couple sacks. It was a relatively poor performance from both defenses with a couple upsides. J.C. Jackson rebounded, being the one with the interception after last year's down year. Up next, we've got the Packers-Bears. This was a bit surprising for Jordan Love's true debut. This is his true debut. He started 1 game before, but that was 2 years ago when Rodgers had COVID. It was a short week. It was against the Chiefs. This was his true debut, and he did look pretty good. The Packers won 38-20. This game was over by the middle to end of the third quarter.
Dude, I cannot handle it if the Packers go 3 really great quarterbacks in a row.
I'm from Chicago. You think I can handle any more of Packers dominance?
The Packers are such an obnoxious franchise. It really just, they should not be good. All of their front office decisions point to why they should not be good, and every year, for some reason, they're able to be at least decent.
But they never do anything in the playoffs, and last year the Lions kept them out of the playoffs. So, you know what? I'll take my wins where I can get them. Aaron Jones looked pretty good. Actually, he looked really good. 2 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. 9 carries for 41 yards and another touchdown. A.J. Dillon looked really bad. 13 for 19. No touchdowns, only 1.5 yards a carry. Outside of Aaron Jones, they had Luke Musgrave, their rookie tight end, with 3 for 50 yards. Jaden Reed, their rookie receiver, 2 for 48. And Romeo Doubs did have 2 receiving touchdowns, but not much in the yard department. And they were missing Christian Watson, which definitely inhibited their passing game in this game. Devontae Wyatt, last year, going into his sophomore season, he did have a sack and a half. Lucas Van Ness had a sack, and Quay Walker had a pick off Justin Fields.
Dude, Justin Fields, man.
He had more yards in this game than he did in most games of last year, to be fair, and he also had 37 passing attempts. Last year, they trusted him with no more than 20 in any week. So that does look a little more promising in the sense that the team seems to have Fields back. They seem to trust him. But he didn't look anything special. He only had 216 yards, 24 for 37, a touchdown and an interception. Rushing-wise, he was the leading rusher by a lot, 9 for 59. Outside of him, it was Khalil Herbert, 9 for 27, and Roschon Johnson, the rookie, 5 for 20 and a touchdown. Receiving-wise, DJ Moore was disappointing in his first game with the Bears, only 2 for 25. Darnell Mooney looked pretty good, though, 4 for 53 and a touchdown. Cole Kmet continues his good span as a tight end for this team, 5 for 44. Tremaine Edmonds looked pretty good in his first game with the team. He really looked like a leader, and Yannick Ngakoue got a sack.
Listen, people were really high on the Bears coming into this year.
I was very high on the Bears. This was a bit of a disappointment.
They did not. I mean, time and time again, the Packers continue to just, manhandle them every single time. It's really it's truly the true big. It's not the true big brother little brother rivalry in the NFL.
It's the big. As someone from Chicago, I'm willing to admit it's the closest thing to it. Between the two closest things would be Packers, Bears, and Jets, Patriots.
Yeah.
There's no other.
It is kind of a shame though that one of the most intense rivalries in the NFL is
as one-sided. Yeah, I mean, it's very hard when one team has never had a 4,000-yard passer and the other has had 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks for the past 30 years.
Yeah,
it's gonna be very one-sided.
Yeah.
I was hoping that this new generation with Justin Fields as the Bears quarterback and Jordan Love as the Packers quarterback would start a swap of that, and it doesn't seem to be the case after week 1, but the Packers always have the Bears' name.
In an NFC East matchup, the biggest blowout
matchup from hell for New York.
It's fine, I hate the Giants.
Of course you do, you're a Packers fan.
Packers?
Or Patriots, sorry. You're a Patriots fan. Of course you hate the Giants. The funny thing is, even with the Cowboys winning 40-0, Dak Prescott still didn't look that good.
I have been telling everyone at this school.
Dak is overrated.
Dak is so mid. It's insane.
He didn't have an interception. I'll give him that. But he only had 24 pass attempts, barely over a 50% completion rate, less than 150 yards.
And Cooper Rush got 1 pass.
Good for him. I mean, when you're winning 40-0, it makes sense for your backup quarterback to come in. Tony Pollard, as always, looked really good. Not his first game, but first time going in. First game without, not his first game without Zeke, because Zeke's missed time. True. But first full season without Zeke, he looked really good in the lead back role. 14 for 70, 2 touchdowns. Receiving-wise, CeeDee Lamb looked pretty good, 4 for 77. Outside of that, it was all their defense and special teams. There was a blocked field goal.
Their defense was absurd.
Their defense, they had 2 interceptions. They had a fumble recovery. They had 7 sacks. And they also, on special teams, had a blocked field goal on the Giants' first drive. Then the following drive, it was an interception on Daniel Jones because Saquon basically fumbled it. It fell out of his hands right as the ball got to him, and it counted as an interception. But it was basically a fumble on Saquon, and they never recovered from there. It was back-to-back scoring drives for the Cowboys, 1 off a special teams touchdown, 1 a defensive touchdown. Their defense in fantasy ended with between 30 and 40 points. They had an unreal night.
That has to be one of the highest points ever by a defense in fantasy.
It's got to be up there. Daniel Jones, though, he looked pedestrian. He coming off his big contract extension, $35 million a year.
And coming off a year where he played decently well. He had, I believe, the 6th highest QBR last year.
He really had gotten rid of a lot of these turnovers, and then game 1 throws 2 interceptions. One of them not as much his fault. It's kind of on Saquon. It should have been a fumble, as I was saying. The other one was definitely his fault. 15 for 28, pretty bad completion percentage. Only 100 passing yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Tyrod Taylor even came into the game. It was that bad. Saquon Barkley looked fine, but again, he bobbled a pass that ended up being intercepted. 12 for 51 on the ground, no touchdowns. Because again, the Giants had 0 points the whole game. Daniel Jones looked fine on the ground, 13 for 43, nothing special. Receiving wise, Darren Waller, their big offseason acquisition, was their only was their only receiver with more than 25 yards, 3 for 36. Behind him, Isaiah Hodgins with 1 catch for 24 yards, and that was about it.
They just looked embarrassing. It's an embarrassing performance.
And their defense did literally nothing. No sacks, no interceptions. They were just bad on every facet of every side of the ball, all three sides of the ball. The Giants were just outclassed completely the entire game. They were never in it at any point.
In a division that becomes harder and harder every single year, the Giants just look absolutely atrocious on every side of the ball.
All right, now for the Bills versus the Jets.
Oh my God.
What a game. First of all, what a game. But I cannot believe it's already over for Rodgers. I'm not going to say it's over for the Jets.
God.
But I don't know really what hope they have unless Zach Wilson really steps up or they sign a veteran quarterback at this point.
All of their preseason hype, all of the reason that they were getting, Super Bowl contender and they're turning their whole organization around was because of this one acquisition. And I'm not saying that there are no other good acquisitions.
They did do a lot of other things in the offseason, but that was the biggest move.
But no one was saying, they're Super Bowl contenders because they have Dalvin Cook now. Well, I think Dalvin Cook is a great addition. He's not the reason.
He didn't even look as good as Breece Hall.
And, this is it. I am genuinely confident that the Patriots can now finish above them this season.
I still disagree. I think the Jets, they looked better than the Bills last night.
I don't think that's fully due to what the Jets did, though. I think
the Jets' defense.
I think their defense was great, and I think Allen looked like crap.
Yeah, so looking at the stats, the game ended 16-22 in favor of the Jets off a punt return touchdown in overtime. Crazy ending.
Insanity.
Josh Allen was actually given a chance in overtime to win the game. He's now 0-5 in overtime since he forced the rule change after losing to the Chiefs a couple years back. But he was given a chance to lead a game-winning drive in overtime, and he went 3 and out. So, and then the Jets returned it for a touchdown. Josh Allen's stats this game, he was 29 for 41, 236 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. He also fumbled the ball once. 4 different turnovers. Really, really looked very poor.
I mean, he just did not look good in any sense of the word, really. He
was fine on the ground like he always is, 6 for 36.
Yeah, but also it really feels like a lot of the time he is their rushing attack. And, that's just not sustainable as a quarterback.
James Cook looked fine last night, 12 for 46, nothing special, but he looked fine. Damian Harris was not used at all, which was surprising. He only had 1 carry. Stephon Diggs, always looking good, 10 for 102 yards and a touchdown. He's so good. Gabe Davis, 2 for 32, honestly kind of lackluster. Dalton Kincaid, big offseason, first-round pick, only 4 for 26, 4 receptions in his rookie debut.
I like Kincaid. I liked him coming out of college, out of Utah, I want to say. I think it's Utah.
He's a good pairing with Dawson Knox. Between the two of them, 7 catches for 50 yards.
He's got the physicals to be really good in this league, so I'm excited to see what he does for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
I won't judge him too quickly.
And then on defense, Matt Milano had an interception. Jordan Phillips had a sack. And Leonard Floyd had a sack and a half. He was signed by them late in the offseason over the summer, so that's working out pretty well for them right now. Mm-hmm. Although I'm pretty sure he's the one who got the sack on Aaron Rodgers that ended up forcing him out of the game and tearing his meniscus or his Achilles.
Yeah, genuinely crazy. Have you seen the whole thing about how this is basically identical to Vinny Testaverde?
I have not.
Okay, so basically, I believe it was 24 years ago. The Jets had something similar aspirations of trying to make a Super Bowl run. They brought in Vinny Testaverde, big quarterback acquisition at the time. First game of the season, Vinny Testaverde tears his Achilles or something, or ACL or something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Looking at the Jets on offense, I mean, Rodgers literally only threw 1 pass. It wasn't even completed. He has 0 yards he will have 0 yards on the season for the Jets. Which means that the Packers are not getting a first-round pick out of him.
Yeah.
Because he's definitely playing less than 70% of the snaps.
That's unreal.
He survived 4 snaps.
Wilson didn't even look that good.
He didn't look bad, but he looked better than he did for a lot of last year, but he still looked pretty bad. He still had an interception. He still threw an interception. He only threw for 140 yards, and his only touchdown was because Garrett Wilson made an incredible catch that was basically him being a cornerback. And in any other scenario, that's not normally going to be a touchdown catch there. Zach Wilson could have thrown an interception instead of a touchdown.
I mean, I was talking with our Jets fans, friends of ours that are Jets fans, and they're now high on Zach Wilson. And I'm like, okay, just because you beat the Bills does not mean Zach Wilson is some prodigy.
He beat the Bills last year.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I'm
saying I agree with you.
Yeah.
He beat the Bills last year and was off, and then later got benched.
He's crap. He's nothing. He's never going to be good. I'm sorry, he's just not. We got fooled by his pro day throw.
I do not think he'll be good, but I'm going to give him a few more weeks this year. I mean, their offense is different than it was last year. They also have Nathaniel Hackett now as their offensive coordinator, which I actually think is a bad thing. It's only a good thing if they have Rodgers.
Yep.
But now that he's not there, their whole offense needs to change. But something that they did get right, and that I'm super happy to see, was Breece Hall on his return. 10 carries, 127 yards. He looked explosive. He looked fast. He looked amazing. Like it looked like that injury never happened.
It makes the acquisition of Dalvin Cook seem kind of useless.
It seems questionable because Dalvin Cook had more carries, and I get it. Breece Hall was on a huge snap count last night because he is still technically hurt a little bit. He came back in the season pretty late. But I think he only had 17 total snaps in which he got 10 carries in those snaps. They really only played him when he was getting the ball. But that just shows how good he is.
Yeah.
He was explosive.
I honestly think that they'll probably use both backs a lot this season.
They're also using Michael Carter.
Yeah, they're going to depend a lot on their run game this year.
They have to now. They weren't going to, but they have to.
They don't have the quarterback talent anymore to not rely on it.
I find it interesting that Michael Carter's their third down back when Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook are both on the team.
Yeah, I don't know.
Receiving wise, Zach Wilson didn't play very good, so there wasn't much. Garrett Wilson 5 for 34 and a touchdown. Dalvin Cook a few catches. Breece Hall 1 catch, and Allen Lazard 2 for 46. But on defense, they had Quentin Jefferson with 2 sacks. Jermaine Johnson with 1 sack, and Jordan Whitehead had 3 interceptions off of Josh Allen. 3.
Ding, ding, ding. Like, not even Sauce Gardner, which I think is kind of funny. But yeah.
Sauce Gardner, for a while, was shutting down Diggs, and then towards the end, he wasn't anymore.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this Jets defense is good. It has really great pieces. I really like Quinnen Williams. I really like Sauce Gardner, of course. I like these pieces that they have. I think they have the ability to go at least 500. But do I think that they are anywhere close to being the best team in this division anymore? No.
It's clearly
the Dolphins. Yeah.
The Bills looked rusty. I mean, I think that'll change throughout the year, but the Dolphins look like the clear-cut winner of the division right now.
I mean, I know it's very early in the season, but when are we allowed to have the conversation that maybe Josh Allen is just can't get it done?
We'll see. That'll come down to the postseason, which we've seen in the past he can't. But the year's already started. Let's give him this. They're gonna make the playoffs.
Yeah, probably.
All right, now we're gonna go into our top 10 teams after week 1, our power rankings.
Mm-hmm. I'll quickly rattle off mine.
Do you want to go 10-1?
Yeah, I'll go 10-1. Number 10, I have the Buffalo Bills. They did not look good at all, but they still have the talent to, be top 10. I think they're still in the better half of teams in the league. While the loss was embarrassing, they can definitely still turn it around. Number 9, I have the Ravens. I think that, their versatility on offense, the pieces they've added over the offseason, I think they can be decent. Do I think that they're going to be this elite team that, makes a deep playoff run? No, but I think they'll be very good in the regular season, and I think that Lamar is going to have a great year, of course. Number 8, I still have the Bengals in the top 10. I'm not going to write them off completely. While they looked absolutely putrid and Joe Burrow looked awful, they still have the talent, just like the Bills, to be one of these elite teams in the league. Next, I have the Jags. I think the Jags look good. I think that they're the clear-cut favorite to win their division. I think that they're going to be great. I'm a Trevor Lawrence believer. And I think, Calvin Ridley looked absolutely incredible. Number 6, I have the Cowboys, and you might be saying, Well, why do you have the Cowboys so low if they shut out the Giants and beat them by 40? The thing is that the Cowboys are going to cowboy, and they cannot do anything. They cannot get anything done, and so I still don't think they're going to win their division. I think the Eagles will probably still win their division. You'll see where I put the Eagles. But, the Cowboys did look absolutely incredible. Their defense looked beatable. So that's why I have them at 6. Number 5, I have the Chiefs, who slid a decent amount. I probably would have had them at 1 or 2 going into the season, and now they've slid to the 5 spot. I mean, they are missing their number 1 target for Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, and they lack a lot on offense, but I still think they can turn the season around once Kelce comes back. Number 4, I have the Lions. I really think this is the year for the Lions. I think they make the playoffs. I think that they make it out of the wild card, out of the first round. I think the Lions are going to be great. Number 3, Dolphins. Tua looked incredible. Tyreek Hill looks incredible. Jalen Waddle, incredible. The whole offense just is booming. They won in an incredible shootout against the Chargers, who have an incredibly high-powered offense. Number 2, I have the 49ers. The 49ers have been consistently great. I don't really see anything changing for them. Brock Purdy has proved that it was not a one-season fluke so far. And I just think the 49ers are going to be great. And number 1, I have the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat my New England Patriots in a very close game. The Patriots were able to hang in there, but I think the Eagles are by far the clear-cut favorite to still win the Super Bowl. I think the Eagles are going to be fantastic.
Now for mine, at 10, I also have the Bills. They slid a lot for me. They were really high, and then Josh Allen looked really bad. Maybe it's the Madden curse. Who knows? But he turns the ball. He's too prone to turning the ball over, which really knocks them down a peg. It really can throw them out of games, and they lost a game last night that they really just shouldn't have. At 9, we've got the Bengals. They looked really sluggish. They only had 3 points in their opener, and honestly, they really fell out of favor for me. Joe Burrow's one of my favorite. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but he just did not look very good. I think they'll rub this. I think they'll be able to look past this game and move on from it, but for now they're down there. The Ravens at 8, they looked better than the Bengals. They're both in the same division. It's going to be a really competitive division, but the Ravens, they did get a nice win against the Texans. Lamar Jackson didn't do anything too incredible. He didn't look that good, which was a little concerning, but I'm sure he'll bounce back. Zay Flowers looked pretty good, and overall their offense was moving. At 7, I have the Lions. I know that seems really low. It's just an asterisk. If they beat the Chiefs with their top 2 weapons in Chris Jones and Travis Kelce, maybe it would be a different situation. I want to see another few games out of the Lions before I put them any higher, but I really do think they'll just go higher and higher on this list.
No, that's fair.
At number 6, I've got the Jaguars. They looked explosive. Their offense was firing. Their defense looked a little lackluster because they did let up 21 points to the Colts in Anthony Richardson's first game, a team that was really not good last year. But overall, the Jaguars' offense looked amazing. Calvin Ridley looks amazing, and I can't wait to see where this offense can go. At number 5, I got the Cowboys. Does seem a little low, but honestly, the same reason. The Cowboys always choke in the playoffs. They seem to always have these really strong games. Last year it was the game against the Vikings where they won, I think, 40-3. But then they also have a bunch of really poor games, like how they ended last season losing to Washington. So you never really know what you're going to get with the Cowboys. At number 4, I've got the Eagles, because the Eagles, they fell down a peg after playing so close to the Patriots. Maybe the Patriots just have an improved offense, but it's too early to say that yet. And it really seemed like the Eagles' defense was letting up a lot more yardage than they were for a lot of last year, although their running defense still seems very dominant. And their offense seems really good too. But there were a few key misses on that offense, such as Dallas Goedert having 0 catches the whole game. And number 3, I actually have the Dolphins, because they looked like the most explosive team in the entire league. Their defense let up a lot of points, but their offense scored so many points. Tyreek Hill had over 200 yards. Tua had over 450 passing yards. They just looked explosive. Jalen Waddle at the 2 receivers, just a crazy 1-2 punch. They just look so good, and I enjoy watching them so much. I can't wait to see more. And number 2, I still do have the Chiefs. They were number 1 going into the season. The only reason I didn't have them dropping any further is because they were missing Travis Kelce, and yes, they are missing Chris Jones, but I can't say that he's going to come back for sure anyways, so that's not really a point I can make of they were missing him, because he might not return to the team. He's holding out.
I thought he signed.
No, he's been holding out because they haven't given him the contract he wanted. And then at number 1, I have the Niners, the 49ers. I am a little biased because I'm a 49ers fan. However, I do sincerely believe the 49ers have the most complete roster. Their biggest question mark going into the season was their quarterback position, being Brock Purdy. Can he recover from this injury? And he seems to have recovered. He threw for 200-something yards, 2 touchdowns. He didn't do anything incredible, but he has the weapons around him. Ayuk seems to be better. Debo seems healthy. McCaffrey's healthy. They've got a great core of guys around Brock Purdy, and as long as he doesn't throw anything off for that team, I just think they're going to go so far.
Yeah. I mean, I mostly agree with your rankings. There are a couple of places. I think the Chiefs at 2 is really high. And I think the Eagles at 4 is a little low, but
I could see those switching. I could easily see those switching next week. I don't want week 1 to impact my rankings, my preseason rankings too much.
That's fair. I think all in all, this was an extremely exciting week. There's a lot of new questions that have arisen. We're still really yet to answer any of the questions we've had going into the season, but I think this is shaping up to be an extremely exciting, and just like we're gonna see teams this season, I believe, that have not been good in a little while. I think we're gonna see the Lions be really good. I think we're gonna see the Jags be really good. So this is shaping up to be just incredible.
Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in to our first episode. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Perfect. Peace. Hook 'em.